Hey all, JTC here, and today I wanted to talk about why Crit Pwr is not as good as you think it is. This is something that I have, as a veteran, have been hearing since day one of this game. Crit Pwr is not worth it. Run increased crit chance and increased attack speed, that's much better. And as someone who's not very numbers-oriented, I just left it up to the numbers people and I blindly trusted them. But after hearing about Warrior Priest coming out and people going crazy over this critical team synergy that you can do, I decided to really just dig down and do my research and do some testing to see if Crit Pwr is actually worth it. And I can now confidently say that it is not worth it. And that's because the Crit Pwr increase is not a flat increase. Hey all, future JTC here. In my original recording of this last night at 4 a.m., don't record videos at 4 a.m., it's a bad idea, I explained this part wrong, so here I am the next day to explain this part correctly. Power versus is better than Crit Pwr because power versus monsters, Skaven, Chaos, Infantry, Berserkers even, is just a flat increase against that enemy type, just a flat 10% increase in damage. Whereas Crit Pwr is not a flat 20% boost in power to your critical damage, it's a 20% increase in the actual critical hit multiplier. Every single weapon in this game has a critical damage multiplier, which basically means whenever you crit, it multiplies the damage by that amount. And for example, I think off the top of my head, Rapier is 1.75. Don't quote me on that, I might be wrong, but that's the number in my head for some reason. So whenever you crit with Rapier, the critical damage is multiplied by 1.75. And then Crit Pwr therefore increases that 1.75 to something higher. 2, I think? It increases it to 2. I don't know, math is hard. But yeah, that's how it works. And because of how Crit Pwr works like that, because it's not actually multiplying a number, but the modifier to a number, it will never ever keep up with just a flat increase in damage. Bye. Someone on Reddit did the math and they said power versus anything comes out to exactly 10% increased damage, while Crit Pwr ends up being something like 6.66 repeating percent extra damage. And if that didn't explain well, I actually did a test to see how this worked. So what I did was I loaded up Modded Realm, I put a Rat Ogre on, and I decided to test Crit Pwr versus just Power versus. Now here, what I did was I'll show. I have a total of 40% increased damage through critical hits on my items. Technically, that's 5% more than you're ever supposed to get, because what I did was I did the 40% for normally which you can run, and then I added an additional 40% on top of that to replicate the Warrior Priest's talent of 35%. So technically, I do have an extra 5%, but it's negligible in the end of things. So it's not exact, but it's very close. And then I am also running, wherever it is, I'm running Cruelty, which is another additional 50%. So I am in total, I have it right here, I am in total doing 130% more damage with crits. This should be 125 because I'm running an extra 5%, but it's very close. And as you can see right here with Crit Pwr, this is the damage that I got. There's the base body damage, the base headshot damage, which is no crit, and then the crit body damage and the crit headshot damage. And as you can see, not very surprising, I'm sure, with the Crit Pwr, I'm doing more damage on a crit than I am with just Power Versus, and with Power Versus, I'm doing more damage with the base body than I am with the Crit Pwr. That's not very surprising, and yeah. And then, just to show you guys the Power Versus, I ran Power Versus Monsters and Skaven for 20% on my Charm, and I ran on the daggers, Power versus Skaven for 30%, and since you can't get Skaven and Chaos at the same time, because Power versus Infantry exists, I ran Crit Chance instead. So that's plus 30% power that I'm running on this. And even though the numbers is like, oh yeah, you're doing more damage on a crit here, or you're doing more damage on a crit, and those are big numbers that should work, I actually decided to put these things against a test, and I timed it. So here at the very beginning is the Crit Pwr. This is the background Crit Pwr. As you can see, there's Crit Pwr and Crit Chance in there. And then over here is the Power Versus, which is going to be the little box. And if we just sit here and let it play, it starts off, and I tried to line these up like as frame perfect as I could, but if we sit here and we can see, okay, they start pretty same, or they start pretty similar, but as you can see just right here, the Power Versus is so much better. It's like, it's staggering. Like 11 seconds in, I'm already halfway done with the Rat Ogre with Power Versus, and with Crit Power, I'm only a fourth of the way done. Now, of course, once more, this isn't perfect. I have 5% more in the background than I should, so I'm technically doing a little bit more damage. And I tried to aim for headshots as much as I could, and inevitably I missed a couple of headshots, so it's not exact. And I'm pretty sure though with the ultimate I hit headshots both times, so that's exact. But otherwise it's not exact, but it's very, very close. And if we could just come here and skip to the end, we can see that over here, if we get as close as we can, as frame perfect as I can, right there, 20 seconds, about 21 seconds is when the Power Versus monster falls. And then if we fast forward over here, it's at about right there, 25. So that comes to about a 4 to 5 second difference in killing power. And you may think, well, that's only 5 seconds. It's not that big of a deal. You have to remember that in a game like Vermintide, 4 to 5 seconds is a long time. That extra 4 to 5 seconds could be the difference between life and death. If you had killed that Rat Ogre 4 seconds earlier, he might not have slapped you and sent you flying off the cliff. If you had killed that Rat Ogre 4 seconds earlier, you might have turned around to see that Silent Assassin spawn behind you and pounce you, and you might have been able to prevent that pounce. 4 seconds is a long time in a horde-based game like Vermintide. So because of that, it's just not good. Crit Power is not worth it. And then I would also like to reiterate the fact that Crit Power only helps you out on critical hits and does nothing for normal hits, while Power Versus helps you out on both. So yeah, that's the testing that I did. Crit Power is not really worth it. Plus, you're also having to dedicate 2 slots to Crit Power, whereas you could dedicate that to other things. You could dedicate that to Power Versus, which would get you a lot more damage against other things. You could dedicate it to Crit Chance to just be able to crit more often. You could dedicate it to, You could dedicate it to attack speed for its faster attack, because as we all know, faster attacks equals more damage output just in general. And plus, if we look at Ronald's gift, for Shade, I ran Cruelty for that 50% increased damage. Exquisite Huntress is just so much better. 50% increased headshot damage is going to get you so much more damage. And hell, even Exploit Weakness, because these two, they're just flat 20% increase and flat 50% increase in damage. Whereas Cruelty is not, this is not a flat 50% increase. So yeah. And then with Warrior Priest of Sigmar, you're exchanging that, I don't think he's on here yet. Oh no, he is, nice. Whenever you, oh my god, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you're exchanging Prayer of Vengeance for Prayer of Might, increased stagger power and increased max health, which are, of course, much better than increased critical power. So if you're trying to run critical power, you're essentially taking more for less of a benefit. That's just how it works. So yeah, that's all I had to say. Crit Power isn't really worth it. Run Power Versus stuff. See ya.